Okay, hello everybody. I am here to read chapter 4 of The Lost Years of Merlin. In chapter 3, our boy Emerus was running away from Denidius, and he climbed up a tree and he enjoyed the view of the surrounding countryside and the ocean, and there was a strong storm that blew the tree around and made it sway, and he stayed up there and was very happy and observant. And this is chapter 4, called The Rag Pile. Late afternoon light heightened the hues and deepened the shadows before I felt a subtle pain in my abdomen. Quickly the pain grew. I was hungry as a wolf. Taking a last look at the vista, I could see a golden web of light creeping across the hills. Then I began to climb down from my perch. When at last I reached the bottommost branch, still wet from rain, I wrapped my hands around the bark and let myself drop over the side. For a moment I hung there, swaying like the tree in the gale. For some reason, I realized, the usual ache between my shoulder blades has not bothered me since I had first ascended the branches. I let go, falling into the bed of needles. Gently, I placed my hand upon the rigid trunk of the old tree. I could almost feel the resins moving through the tall, columnar body, even as the blood moved through my own. With a simple pat of my hand, I gave thanks. My gaze fell to a bouquet of tan mushrooms wearing shaggy manes, nestled among the needles at the base of the pine. From my forages with Bronwyn, I knew them to be good eating. I pounced. In short order, I had consumed every one, as well as the roots of the purple-leafed plant growing nearby. I found the deer trail and followed it back to the rivulet. Cupping my hands, I drank some of the cold water. It chilled my teeth and awakened my tongue. A new lightness in my step, I returned to the towpath leading to the village. I crossed the bridge. Beyond the mill, the thatched roofs of Caer Vedwid clustered like so many bundles of dry grass. In one of them, the woman who called herself my mother was probably mixing her potions or tending to someone's wound, ever secretive and silent. To my own surprise, I found myself hoping that, one day, this place might yet feel like home. Entering the village, I heard the playful shouts of older boys. My first impulse was to seek out one of my usual hideaways. Yet, I felt a new surge of confidence. This was the day to join their games. I hesitated. What if Denidius was about? I would need to keep a wary eye on the smith's shop. Still, perhaps even Denidius might soften in time. Slowly I approached. Beneath the great oak tree, where the three main pathways converged, I saw farmers and merchants gathered, peddling their goods. Horses and donkeys stood tethered to posts, their tails swishing at flies. Nearby, a bard with a somber face was entertaining a few listeners with a ballad, until one of the swishing tails slapped him right in the mouth. By the time he quit gagging and composed himself again, he had lost his audience. 4 boys stood at the far side of the square, practicing their aim by throwing rocks and sticks at a target. A pile of torn rags stuffed against the base of an old oak. When I saw that Denidius was not among them, I breathed easier. Soon I drew near enough to call out to one of the boys. "How's your throw today, Lud?" A squat, sandy-haired boy turned to me. His round face and small eyes gave him the look of being perpetually puzzled. Although he had not been unfriendly to me in the past, today he seemed cautious. I could not tell whether he was worried about Denidius or me. I stepped nearer. "Don't worry, no birds are going to empty themselves on your head." Lud watched me for an instant, then started to laugh. "A good shot that was." I grinned back. "A very good shot." He tossed me a small stone. "Why not try your aim?" "Are you sure?" one of the other boys asked. "Denidius won't like it." Lud gave a shrug. "Go ahead, Emrys. Let's see how you throw." The boys traded glances as I hefted the stone in my palm. With a snap of my arm, I threw at the rag pile. The stone flew high and wide, hitting the goose pen and causing a great commotion of honking and flapping. I muttered sheepishly, "Not too good." "Maybe you should get closer," ridiculed one of the boys. "Like right under the tree." The others laughed. Lud waved them quiet and tossed me another stone. Try again. Some practice is what you need. Something about his tone restored my confidence. As they all watched, I took aim again. This time, as I positioned myself, I took a moment to gauge the distance to the target and the weight of the stone in my hand. Keeping an eye on the pile of rags, I wound back my arm and released. The stone made a direct hit. Lud clucked in satisfaction. I could not keep from smiling proudly. Then something caught my attention. Instead of sailing through the rags and hitting the trunk of the tree behind, my stone had bounced away, as if the rags themselves were made of something solid. As I looked more closely, my heart missed a beat. For as I watched, the rag pile shifted. From it came a piteous groan. "It's a person!" I cried in disbelief. Lud shook his head. "That's no person." He waved carelessly at the rag pile. "That's a Jew." "A filthy Jew!" echoed one of the other boys. He hurled his own stone at the rags. Another hit. Another groan. But you can't," I started to say more, then caught myself. That would risk losing any chance I might have to be accepted by the group. "Why not?" Lud reared back to throw a weighty stick. "The Jews should never have come through here. They are hell-born, like demons, with horns and tails. They carry diseases, bring bad luck." The rag pile whimpered. I swallowed hard. "I don't believe it. Why don't we let the beggar go and aim at something else instead?" Lud eyed me strangely. "You best not defend the Jew. People might wonder whether—" He paused, picking his words. "Whether you come from the same stock." Before I could reply, Lud let fly the heavy stick. With a sweep of my arm, I cried out, "No, don't hit him!" The stick abruptly stopped its flight in midair and fell to the ground. It was as if the stick had slammed into an invisible wall of air. The boys stood astonished. My jaw dropped. I was no less amazed than they were. "A spell," whispered one boy. "Sorcery," said another. Lud's round face whitened. Slowly he backed away from me. "Get away, you demon child," finished another voice. I turned to find myself face to face with Denidius, his tunic ripped and splattered with mud from his long trek through the forest. Despite his grimace, he looked satisfied at having cornered his prey at last. I straightened my back, which only made me more aware of his considerable size advantage. "Let's not be enemies." He spat on my cheek. "You think I would be the friend of a demon's whelp like you?" My dark eyes narrowed as I wiped my face clean. It was all I could do to contain my anger enough to try again. My voice shaking, I declared, "I am no demon. I am a boy, just like you." "I know what you are." Denidius's voice rolled down on me like a rock slide. "Your father was a demon, and your mother does the evil work of demons. Either way, you are the child of the devil." With a shout, I lunged at him. Deftly, Denidius stepped to one side, swung me into the air, and threw me hard to the ground. He kicked me in the side for a good measure, sending me rolling in the dirt. I could barely sit up for the pain in my ribs. Above me towered Denidius, his bushy head thrown back in laughter. The other boys laughed too, even as they urged him on. "What's your trouble, demon's child?" taunted Denidius. Though my pain was great, my rage was greater. Clutching my side, I strove to roll onto my knees, then rise to my feet. I growled like a wounded beast, then charged again, arms flailing. An instant later, I found myself face down on the grass, barely able to breathe. I could taste blood in my mouth. The thought of playing dead crossed my mind in the hope that the tormentor would lose interest, but I knew better. Denidius's laughter ceased as I forced myself to stand, blood trickling down my chin. I planted my unsteady feet and looked into his eyes. What I found there caught me off guard. Beneath his belligerence, he was clearly surprised. "God's sweet death, but you're stubborn." "Stubborn enough to stand up to you," I replied hoarsely. My hands clenched into fists. At that moment, another figure swept out of nowhere to stand between us. The boys, except for Denidius, fell back, and I gasped in surprise. It was Bronwyn. Though a shadow of fear crossed his face, Denidius spat at her feet. "Move aside, she-demon." Eyes alight, she glared at him. "Leave us." Go to the devil, he retorted. That's where you both belong. Is that so? Then it is you who had better flee. She raised her arms menacingly, or I'll bring the fires of hell down on you. Denidius shook his head. You will be the one to burn, not me. But I am not afraid of fire. I cannot be burned. Lud, watching Bronwyn nervously, pulled on Denidius's shoulder. What if she speaks the truth? Let's go. Not until I finish with her whelp. Bronwyn's blue eyes flashed. Leave now, or you shall burn. He stepped backwards. She leaned toward him, then spoke a single word of command. Now. The other boys turned and ran. Denidius, seeing their flight, looked uncertain. With both hands, he made a sign to protect himself from the evil eye. Now! Repeated Bronwyn. Denidius glowered at her for a moment, then retreated. I took Bronwyn's arm. Together, we walked in slow procession back to our hut. Okay, so that was chapter 4, and tomorrow at 9 p.m. Pacific time, we will read chapter 5 called A Sacred Time. Thank you for joining me, and have a great night.